Welcome to the Millennial Life Coaches podcast. At MLC, our mission is simple: add value to help you take on massive action towards your life goals. Here, we feature amazing coaches from all over the world, share compelling stories, and discuss proven practices to help keep your energy high and in the flow. Learn more about MLC at millenniallifecoaches.com.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of How to Get Ahead with Millennial Life Coaches. On this episode, I am joined by Jemaine Finlay, who has a big long list of lots of things that she is: speaker, educator, health practitioner, a whole host of things. She's got a whole wealth of expertise. So I'm going to dive in and get to know who she is and how she can help us. So welcome to the podcast, Jemaine.
Thanks, Lorna. It's great to be here.
I'm going to call you Jam, if that's okay, throughout the conversation. I feel like we're in a nice, comfortable position. We can chat. So how would you define yourself then? I've given a long list of everything that I found when I was on your website, but how would you introduce yourself?
Introduction, I am an everyday woman with self-diagnosed ADHD, like most of us out there, trying to achieve a million things, and coming from not just an educational background, but also a background of experience with burnout, with exhaustion, with feeling like not only was I failing myself, but the pressure that I was applying to myself in my life, the perfectionism, the busyness, it impacted every area of my life. My relationship broke down, my health broke down, and I thought a transition out of that season, those circumstances, that job, that role, that industry was going to be the solution, but the stress followed me, the busyness followed me. And so that started the evolution of my career journey, really. And it really has been a consistent evolution, always feeling like it's not yet complete. And stepping into this arena now of speaking in this last 2 years has really brought the completion. I just feel like I've now kind of stepped into my calling, where it is education and it is empowerment. And a lot of that is redefining the common dialogue and narrative around what well-being actually is. Because I do feel that a lot of the narrative out there, it really is in some way disempowering. It's allowing people to think that something outside of them is going to shift a feeling within, whether that is a supplement or a diet or a practitioner or a coach. And I'm not negating the importance of any of those things, but often where I always come back to is there is a being beneath the behavior. There's a reason why the diet doesn't last more than 3 days, or we meet friction when we're trying to go to the gym, or we take the greatest advice and feel inspired on a call with a coach, but we just can't seem to maintain or sustain, the outcomes that we're achieving. So it's been a long evolution, but I guess to sum it up, where I am sitting in this current season is really just empowering people with personal responsibility and recognizing the ability that they have to take back control of their life, health, and happiness in all domains.
I love that. And I don't talk to many people about personal responsibility, actually, because I think that's a very different narrative to the buy into the next thing, up level to the next program, push yourself harder narrative that's going round. What do you mean by personal responsibility? Could you dive in a bit more with that?
Yeah, it really is. Well-being is really multidimensional and it is complex. And I think personal responsibility is taking ownership for understanding ourselves. The framework that I work with is starting off with self-awareness. We need self-awareness before we can actually have the capacity to create change in any area of our life. Self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-empowerment, and then we reach that self-actualization. And so we need to recognize, as I mentioned with my story, the beliefs beneath the behavior. We need to understand, why is it that I can take the same actions as, my best friend or my coach or, all of these people influencing on social media, but I don't get the same outcome. And self-sabotage is really so subtle. And that's where I think that personal responsibility comes in. And I think when I look at the word responsibility, it is broken into, it is responsibility. And we have to recognize that we all have the ability to respond to people, circumstances, and things in our environment today, but also those things from our past. And I get really quite passionate about that because I do have quite a lot of intense trauma from my past, and that carried over from intense trauma that my parents had also experienced. However, that generation don't typically have the tools or the resources for that self-awareness, for that emotional resilience, to be able to walk through and heal the things that have happened in their life. And that's where I kind of recognized through my journey, as much as at a cognitive level, I think that I had healed all of those things that I had been through, at a subconscious level, that was still playing out in my life through the busyness, through the stress, through the inability to sit in silence or sit with myself. And that's where that personal responsibility really comes into the picture. I chose a different path to my parents, whereas one of my parents chose to medicate with alcohol to numb the pain of her past. So I guess from a different, like I mentioned, a huge evolution, both personally and professionally, but that really did drive into the key message of that personal responsibility for me, because we can continue to be a victim within our life, or we can recognize our ability and choice and make a decision in that moment. Do I lean into this and heal my journey, heal my lineage, heal my story, or do I repeat the cycles? And that's where it really comes in.
Hey there, if you've been stuck about how to get clients, how do you turn strangers into clients, I want to invite you to take my free From Crickets to Clients series class, and it's taking you through how to make a freebie funnel that leads to more sales. Now, before you go thinking it's going to be super techy or confusing, I want to let you know it's very simple to start creating a freebie, or what I call a pre-offer, that interests people in your services and makes them want to know more about you. And that is a great place to start if you are building up your audience and email list. So check it out at haleyrowe.com/live event, all one word, and can't wait to hear how it goes for you. And thank you, MLC, for featuring me. My name's Haley Rowe. I'm a marketing and sales coach. I'm also on Instagram at Haley_Rowe. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask a little bit more about your past and your previous jobs and things, if that's okay. So you mentioned about your an educational background. Is that right?
So my background, again, it's been a big evolution, but educational, I meant, the bachelor degree and, all of this upskilling and certification and qualification. But initially, it started out, I always thought I was going to own my own restaurant. And I had worked 7 years in hospitality, running some really high-end venues from the south of Western Australia right through to the north, and consistently just burnt myself out running other people's businesses. And through that window in my personal life, I was really getting into my health and fitness. And I thought, maybe that's it. Maybe I'll step into health and fitness. I became qualified as a personal trainer, and I only lasted about 3 months in the industry before recognizing that it really was a bit too aesthetic for the help that I wanted to dive into. I recognized that, and I do believe there's something divine in the journey that we go through, but I recognized the clientele that were coming to me were suffering with really complex body issues, post-surgery issues, weight issues that personal training advice wasn't really tapping into. And so that's where I thought nutrition might be the next step. I ended up enrolling into a degree as a naturopath, specialized in women's health for 7 years, women's health, natural fertility, hormone balancing. And I did love it. I genuinely loved it. I grew organically very quickly because I worked in a natural fertility clinic alongside my studies. So by the time I graduated, I had a wait list of clients waiting to roll through. And so business was a success for many years, but that was the point where I started to recognize, both for myself personally and for my clients, is information isn't transformation. We need information and integration for the transformation. And that season of my life, I was at this point where I had studied anatomy, physiology, nutritional medicine, pharmacology, personal training. I had this holistic understanding of how to improve your health, yet I couldn't get out of my own way. I was still, getting by on 3 hours sleep every night, working late into the evenings, binge eating because of the stress and, all of the cortisol and everything like that. Everything that I was preaching and getting incredible success for with my clients, I couldn't actually implement myself. I couldn't, and that met my own frustrations, but it was the same narrative that I had for the women that were sitting in front of me as well. They knew, like we all know that eating sugar is going to lead to weight gain. We all know that we need to get adequate sleep to be able to be resilient in our day. And we know those things, but we just can't effectively execute them. And so following that realization, I started to integrate NLP or neuro-linguistic programming into my model. I started to develop online programs where it did support people on that biochemical level through their health and also through the behavior and the mindset level as well. And that achieved incredible results. But what I started to recognize is, yet again, I was reaching burnout because my business model was exchanging time for money. And I just didn't feel that I was showing up in my most genuine self, because I was starting to show up in a place of I need money to survive. I need, the economy is changing, and business coaches and the business model were up your prices, sell for more, and all of this stuff, which absolutely works for so many people in this coaching space. But for myself, I felt like it leaves a whole demographic of people behind. The majority of people who genuinely needed the resources that I was providing couldn't even afford a naturopath, let alone, a $3,000 course or, those kinds of things. So that I've kind of gone a really long answer to your story, but that's where I meant the education. It's just been ongoing, how can I upskill? How can I complete this model? This still isn't complete. It's holistic, but it's not quite there. And that kind of has been the evolution. So, I hope that answered your question in a very long way.
That's incredible that you've been able to use the feedback from your clients to then make the next lot of clients have an even better experience, and you're constantly improving what you can offer and constantly evolving how you can help people. That's such an incredible story, and you'll have such a wealth of experience and expertise and qualifications. That's incredible. That's such an incredible journey that you've been on.
Hey there, listeners. This episode of How to Get Ahead with Millennial Life Coaches is proudly sponsored by CoachCore.
CoachCore is an all-in-one platform built specifically for coaches by coaches. We get it. Running a coaching business can feel overwhelming with all the tech, marketing, and administrative work involved. That's why we created CoachCore, to take the stress out of those details and help you focus on what truly matters, your clients and the transformation you provide.
Exactly. Whether you're managing your calendar, tracking your clients' progress, or assessing a comprehensive library of resources, CoachCore is designed to streamline your operations. Our platform automates the technical side of things, so you can spend more time doing what you love, coaching and creating an impact.
And we know that coaches come in all shapes and sizes with different needs. That's why CoachCore is customizable, so it grows with you. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're scaling your business. Our platform supports every step of the way.
So if you're a coach who's ready to simplify your tech, save time and money, and grow your business, CoachCore is here for you. We believe that coaches should be empowered with the right tools to build a sustainable, thriving practice. So why not take a moment and check us out?
So visit us at coachcore.ca to learn more and start your journey toward business growth and tech freedom. And trust us, you don't want to miss the difference CoachCore can make in your coaching practice.
Thanks for tuning in to Millennial Life Coaches podcast. Let's get back to the episode.
What are the kinds of people that you help at the moment then? If we were going to try and imagine the type of woman or person that you tend to work with, who is it that we're speaking to? And hopefully if people are listening or watching, they can maybe recognize themselves and think that might be me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is the woman. She's in her 20s to 50s, probably more so sitting in her 30 to 40 bracket. And something's missing. She possibly doesn't feel depressed, but she also doesn't feel happy. She feels like she's giving everything and showing up in every way that she can, but she's just not getting anywhere. The way I kind of relate it to my own personal story, because I do believe we all, go through our own challenges to create that understanding of our purpose and how we can then change that for other people. For myself, when I was in this really heavy season of my life, I wouldn't have defined it as a mental health challenge in any way, because at that time, I guess where I'm going here is it was burnout, but I couldn't recognize it myself. The world outside of me saw this really high energy, really independent, go-getter, smiley, bubbly person who always had really great, inspiring and motivating advice and
can tick all the boxes, the career
all
box,
of the things, exactly. And but on the inside, I felt incredibly lonely and I felt incredibly overwhelmed, and ever so slowly my narrative went from I just need a break, I just need to run away, I wish I could hit reset. And then it came to one night when my partner was working away and my mind was quite literally cycling, like, I wonder if I was to drive off a bridge, he's working away, would anyone ever find me? And then that was the wake up call when I was like, it would never have eventuated, but it's suicidal ideation. I needed to escape from my life, that in a way that I couldn't even recognize it because it was so subtle. And interestingly enough, a lot of the women who have come through my programs, it's a really safe container where, they can relate and therefore share because they feel seen and heard in their journey. And, it's the mother who wishes she could be in a car accident and be in a hospital bed just to have a break from her everyday life. I've had 2 women in the space of 2 months share that with me. And I thought, how scary is that, we are so desperate for relief that we would wish something bad upon ourselves just for that escape. Or it's the entrepreneur or the busy businesswoman who is just so stretched, and then she's dealing with the inner conflicts of not being able to be present for her kids, for being snappy at her partner, and from her striving and trying to succeed, she's just watching every other area of her life fall to pieces. So it sounds quite broad, that avatar that I'm speaking to, but it really is that woman who is trying to give every aspect of herself, but on the inside, she just feels so isolated and alone. And for myself, the narrative was, no one gets it, no one understands. And we're in a society, especially in the Western world, where we're so conditioned to be independent. I look at every other religion or cultural area of the world, they rely so much on community. They come together in gathering, everyone contributes, and it's such a beautiful part of so many cultures around the world. But in the Western world, if you're not independent, if you're not self-sufficient, if you need help, that's almost considered weak. And we've really created this environment where we eat in the car by ourselves, we're eating on the run and all of these different things, and we just feel so alone and so behind. And then we have social media that's showing us things that we never thought were possible, or people achieving these things that we didn't even know was an option to do. And then we just start questioning, I'm so stretched, I would never have the capacity to be able to do or be those things. And it's that dialogue of that just not enoughness, alone, overwhelmed, and just stuck is really the woman who I help.
And I mean, I can relate to that. I know loads of people who could relate to that at some point in their life have felt that way, that have eaten food in their car while they're on the phone to someone having an argument, or they're late for a meeting and then they get into a car accident or something like that, and your world is spinning out of control, but you're not enjoying it at the same time. You've built it, but you're not enjoying it. I think we've all had patches of that. If someone is in that spiral at the moment, what advice could you give them, or what first step could you give them to start to improve their situation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I actually shared with my community the other day, we all think that there has to be an action, like a next step, like how do I take action to change this? And the first step is before the action piece. We first have to become the observer. It's only when we become the observer in our life that we actually have the ability to recognize what that next step is. And once we become the observer, we start to recognize, okay, there are certain people in my world who I feel exhausted and drained being around. But there are also people where I feel so energized after I've been in their presence that I run home to my partner and I'm like busting at my seams to tell them how my day was. We start to recognize that there are certain environments, say for example, the office environment under artificial light and no windows, where we get home and we're just exhausted. But then there are other environments, and it may be, you really thrive working with people, or there are certain conversations that you really light up having in contrast to others. And when we become the observer and we see what causes us to light up, and just paying attention to our body, we'll be more animated, we'll use our hands to speak, we'll lean in, compared to what causes us to contract. And we'll feel our voice will start to lower, we'll start to kind of punch and draw the body in. And so when we become the observer within our life, we start to actually recognize the things that perhaps we couldn't see before. But these subtle shifts then, maybe I spend less time around this person and be more intentional with the people that I invite into my world. I think a lot of people, when we're talking about energy, where there's so much in the health space that it's about nutrition and it's about sleeping and it's about breath work and it's about all this biohacking and all of this kind of thing, the supplements, which all do work. And I've been in a season of my life where I apply and prescribe all of those. But we have to also recognize that everything is energy, and there are things that are absolutely depleting us. And we could be doing yoga on the weekends, training in the morning, eating a really robust, healthy, nutritious diet, getting our sleep. But then if we're working for 9 hours a day in an environment that completely depletes us, or if we're struggling financially, or if we're not living in congruency with what we aspire to do and who we aspire to be and the reality of what that actually looks like. If we're saying we want to lose weight, but then we're still, eating that block of chocolate, all of these different things, the connection, the congruency, if they're missing from our life, then that's an energetic shift. We feel that. And I think that is the first step, is before changing anything, just observe your life. And we can also then observe the narrative. Quite a common thing is when you start questioning the thoughts that come into your mind, you start to recognize, one, they're not true, or they're redundant. Maybe they were true in a season of your life, but we've just habituated that thought process that we've never actually looked back and realized it's no longer true in this season. It may be an opinion, or it may actually be someone else's voice. I know many years ago, my money story was my dad's narrative. And it was when I actually sat back and I thought, I don't actually believe this, but this is what I'm saying reactively in all of these conversations. I helicoptered over and I observed it and I thought, that is my dad's voice. That is what he has said to me time and time again. So there's so many ways where we can apply it, but observation is the first way to empower us. It's the self-awareness. It's the first step in my framework, right? And following on from that, and I start with that because the second step is simple, but it's not easy, and it's always easier said than done. But we do need to stop and we do need to breathe, because when we have a look at our nervous system and the way we actually talk about neuroplasticity and changing our habits and behaviors, we cannot do that in a place of stress. Our biochemistry and our body is gearing us for survival. The way our blood flow shifts in fight or flight when we're getting surges of adrenaline and cortisol, we are not at the capacity to use our prefrontal cortex, where we have the willpower and the way to rationalize our environment to create change. We actually shoot back to where all of our subconscious and habituated things are sitting. And the way I kind of like to simplify that is, under stress, we react. And if we split that word into two, we are reacting past practice behaviors. Because under stress, the brain needs to find the path of least resistance. So we look for things that we've done and repeated before to get ourselves out of survival. And so when we're in that state, there is no way that we can think rationally about what that next step is going to be that's going to take us in a better direction. We also know from neuroscience as well is that the brainwave frequency, people who reach these altered states, or people that reach these meditative states, it's a shift in their brainwaves. So they start to lower into theta and delta brainwaves, whereas when we're in the soup of the stress, we're functioning in high beta. So that again is keeping us really reactive. And when we're trying to look at behavior change, we a thing that I talk about quite a lot is the first 7 years of our life, and predominantly from the ages of 2 to 7, our brainwave pattern is in a theta state. And for an adult, that's the same as an adult in hypnosis or just before they move into deep sleep. And so that is where the brain is highly suggestible. You think of a child, they're making meaning of how the world makes them feel because their prefrontal cortex hasn't come online yet. So they can't rationalize their experiences. They're just downloading from the environment the way they feel, the things people say, the things that they hear. And that forms those very belief systems that we carry through into our adult life. But if we know that through those first early years is when we're downloading all the software for our survival, then we know that if as an adult, we can train ourselves to drop out of beta and into those theta states, that slower wave brain frequency, then that is going to give us the ability then to use imagination, use real life experience, use gratitude, use presence to start changing that subconscious programming to more empowering belief systems where we can effectively change habit, behaviors, thought processes, and effectively change the way we're living our lives if we're not happy with where we currently are. But we cannot do that in a place of stress from fight or flight.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you said observe, because I know that to be true, because that's the exact process that I went through when I first worked with a coach. She was getting me to observe what I was already doing, where my time was already going. And she made me time block a whole week, every hour, write down what you're doing. Because I said, I've got no time for anything, I've got no time for this, no time for that. So let's see where your time goes and we can observe it. And so I did it for 2 weeks, where I observed every hour over those 2 weeks, and I wrote down what I was doing. And it's fascinating. It was such a wake-up call for me, because where I thought my time was going was completely different to where it actually was. And so much of it was not going where I wanted it to go, but somehow it just did, and time just moves magically like that. And it was such a wake-up call to see it in black and white and observe it like on a piece of paper. Like, this is where my time is going. And now I can redraw that timetable and decide where I want my time to go. That was transformational. Just to have it on physical paper and observe it like that was such a wake-up call. So I'm so glad you said the word observe, because I 100% agree with you. That is the first step. You can't do any action before you've seen it.
Yeah. And that's such a power. Time is the biggest narrative for all of us, right? And progressively, as every year moves on, we seem to be losing more and more and more of it every day. And so that's just such a powerful tool. And as you mentioned, incredibly effective. And that gives us the ability to assume that responsibility again then, because we're not looking for someone to come and save us or a resource to be able to give us time. We say, hang on a second, I actually have control over this, and now I can get intentional with where I'm directing it.
So I completely agree with you there. I was having a little snoop on your website, Jem. I hope you don't mind, so I could find out some more about you. And I came across a term that I've not heard before. You're listed as a heart math coach. Is that right? Am I saying right? Could you tell us a bit about that? Because I've never come across that term. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you asked, because that actually ties really nicely into what I was talking about, our brainwave patterns and everything there as well. So the Heart Math Institute, if any of your audience are familiar with people like Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden, a lot of those people are affiliated with this institute as well. And effectively, there's a lot of research coming out about the power of our heart. Essentially, if we want to really simplify it, it's just achieving heart-brain coherence. So it is using breath and stillness and popping our hand on our heart and just really starting to become aware of our breath, slow things down, and then hold heartfelt emotion. So you might think about sending love to your partner. You might think about the love you feel when you come home to your dog. Anything that generates that emotion of love and draws all of that energy into the heart. And then as we're doing that naturally, our brainwave rhythm will start to slow. The breath will also start to slow. And it's when we start to get this really even kind of wave pattern that's kind of connecting both the heart and the brain, that we drop into this place where we become a lot more resilient to stress. We become a lot more empowered and controlled in our life and the decisions that we're making. It's just, you can do it in 5 minutes. You can achieve it in 5 minutes. Heart Math actually have a product called Inner Balance if you're someone who needs to see the data. And it's just a little resource that you clip onto your ear and an app on your phone. And you just watch this orb kind of expand and contract, and you catch up with that breathing pattern. And as your breath slows, you can actually see your brainwave frequency on the app start to kind of slow down. And then the task is to see how long you can hold yourself in that coherent state. And you'll notice if your partner comes busting through the door, or something just takes your distraction away, you'll actually see that rhythm start to go again. And so it's something that's incredibly measurable. But a lot of the research coming out, the heart has more neurons than the brain does. It's the biggest muscle. People used to think it's just a pump that pumps and circulates blood around your body. There's a lot that it creates the energetic shift that allows us to manifest. They've actually shown that someone can be in a room next door, and if you're in that coherent state, you can actually start regulating their nervous system without them even knowing. So the frequency of our heart can radiate 360 degrees around us, I think about 3 to 6 feet out of the body. So we actually have the ability to regulate other people and shift other people around us in that state as well. So I'm really big in what I teach on the ripple effect, and everything that we do, our state of being not only impacts our life, but also the lives of those around us. And if you're a mum, you would know that when you're feeling stressed or anxious, your child is going to be the biggest pain in your bum, and you always think, why do you have to play up now? I've had this most stressful day, but they're responding to your energy. And so it's just a 5-minute practice of putting your hand on your heart and thinking those heartfelt emotions and just dropping into that state, that we shift the brain chemistry and we actually create a state of being that is empowered for change.
I am someone who would love seeing it on the app, going up and down, changing it. It's so cool. That's so interesting. And another thing to add to your list of all the things you're an expert in. That's amazing.
Yeah. And if your audience really want to kind of see the effects of it, if they have a look into Joe Dispenza's work, he is doing huge retreats and huge conferences where he's actually hooking people up to get their ECG and their EEGs, and actually watching the moment of meditation where people heal. And people come out of those audiences that were never able to walk, and then they walk up, or they start healing cancers and all of these chronic diseases that we're told are incurable. And that's where I really kind of gravitate into this kind of work, because I've seen the material manifestation of disease, and through my work and my research, and I guess the evolution of the different practices that I've brought in, is all disease, and I can say it with hand on heart, starts with dis-ease. And it's when we ignore the energy of dis-ease in our life that energy becomes stagnant and it starts to become dense. And that's where we start to see it at a cellular level. We start to see it manifest into the physical world, which is why we see the work of Joe Dispenza and people in that field creating almost superhuman phenomenon, and it really isn't. I truly believe it's just something that we've forgotten and we've been conditioned away from, but we all have this innate ability to heal and to thrive. We just need to get out of that high beta response of daily life and allow our bodies to tap into that.
Yeah, and it is a very Western thing. You're right. I've spoken to coaches about this before, that when you go into some of the older communities, or look back in history, look to different religions and cultures, they don't have the levels of disease and illnesses that we have, and maybe there's something to be said with less medical intervention and more spiritual intervention. We've had lots of conversations about this. I think you'd be in the same camp there. We want to side towards the sort of spiritual, energetic stuff than the medical stuff, but it's so prevalent in the West. It's just the way that our whole society's built up. You go to the doctors, you pop a pill, and you're fixed.
It's interesting because I mean, nutrition has a huge part on our health. We've got to look after ourselves on all dimensions, from the energetic through to the physical plane, and they can't exist without each other. But, we have a look at a lot of the diet narratives that start coming out, that carbs are bad and all of this different stuff, deep fried and, sugar and all of this stuff. But when you actually go and travel quite a bit and get exposed to the diet of other cultures, there is a lot of wheat, there is a lot of rice, there is a lot of, and I believe a lot of our Western narrative around, the health impacts of wheat and why we want to avoid certain vegetable oils and these kinds of things. I'm not discrediting that or the science behind it at all. But it is interesting when you go into these communities and it's predominantly deep fried. You look at Thailand and there is so much sugar in everything. You can't even get a juice without an additional pump of sugar syrup. And you have a look at the deep fried nature and, there's tortillas and wheat and pasta and wine and all of these things that in the Western world, we're like, that's so bad for your health. But it's the Western world that's dealing with obesity and cancer and, all of these chronic morbidities, yet we're the ones that are speaking so loud about all of this biohacking through nutrition. And that's where I do think, well-being is not the way what it necessarily is that we say it is. It brings in a level of connection and community. Some places around the world, you've got 4 generations living under one roof, whereas here, you can't get out of home quick enough as a teenager, and you can't get your parents into a retirement home any quicker as well. God forbid them moving into your own house. And so, connection, community, contribution, even taking an afternoon nap would be considered lazy here. But you look at, all throughout Europe, and the day doesn't start until 10 p.m. and you've got that long afternoon siesta where all the businesses start to shut so they can go home to their family and have a sleep. And you have to question what are they doing how are we failing in the Western world, and just start looking through the rest of the world and what they're doing.
That's a very big question. I don't think either of us have got the answer to that, but it's a great thing to think about and to look into. Jem, what would you say your mission is in your business, in your coaching? What are you working towards? What are you hoping you're going to achieve through all of your speaking and your courses and your books and everything that you create and everything that you share? What are you hoping to achieve with that?
So the book that is going to be the first of mine on shelves is The Ripple Effect. And so while I'm speaking to an individual, or I'm speaking to a small community, or, I'm working one-on-one with someone, my ultimate mission is to be able to, and this is a big one, but it is elevating the level of consciousness in humanity. Because, we can sit here and be like, we want to bring an end to the war, yet we're all at war with ourselves. Or, we want to end violence, and, the violence that we have going on in our own mind towards ourselves is horrendous. We have all of these things when we're looking at the outside world that we want to change. But if we're having a look at, the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as without, so within, we can't do these big things in the world unless we turn inward. And, if we work on ourselves and we heal and we become intentional with the way we live our lives, that impacts our children, it impacts our friends, it inspires the people around us, so then they raise their children in a better way. We have people who are a lot more emotionally regulated, their nervous systems are more regulated. That is rippling into the world. And so if we can take that personal responsibility, rather than getting so overwhelmed with the news and feeling so helpless in what we can do with the bigger things happening in the world, we have to actually recognize that we can impact all of those things by first elevating our own level of consciousness, elevating our own energy and vitality, showing up in a way that we can do and be our best. And that is a ripple effect so profound that we would never know. But if we can all, step out of this, it's selfish to be selfless and I don't have time for myself because I'm trying to save everybody else, we're never going to get anywhere. And when we keep ourselves disarmed and powerless in that way, it is the politicians, it is the government, it is these higher structures, the corporations that do the decision making. Whereas when we empower ourselves, we actually have an impact on global change. And that's really where my bigger mission is creating that global change through individual consciousness.
And the ripple is an ideal little metaphor for it. Are you still writing the book? What's it up to at the moment?
Yes, still writing. It's interesting. So 2 years ago, I in the middle of the night had the idea almost planted in my brain, and I kid you not, I had the awakening moment where I didn't actually sleep the entire night and wrote the whole book in my mind. I saw the cover page of it, I saw the contents page of it, I saw every chapter broken down. And then when my alarm went off, yet I hadn't even slept, I thought that was a calling, like that channeled into me. It's something that I need to do. And then life and business and all the shiny objects of how you're supposed to get yourself out there. And so there's been a couple of chapters progressively written, but as I mentioned in our earlier emails, the ecosystem that I've been working on this year to I guess provide value, expose people to this kind of education and bring people into my world. There's a lot of evergreen within that's going to allow me the capacity to just step back a little bit and really get this book written. So I had to kind of strategically think about how can I be financially supported to be able to pull back and really devote getting this onto shelves. So that is going to be this year through next, and hopefully I can have the draft manuscript completed by the end of this year, and something in bookstores the next.
Oh my God, this is a cool book that you can go to a bookstore and actually see on the shelves, and people can pick up and look and get all of your... That's exciting. Oh, you should have a book party. You should have like a big...
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You will be a my
Oh, how exciting. It's got to get written first. That's the big challenge.
Yes.
Finish it off.
Yes. Finish it off. But do you know that I didn't complete it at the moment in the season where it all came to fruition, because there's been a lot of self-awareness, a lot of new level awakenings and learnings that have come since, and I don't think the book would be complete without them. So I touched on it before, there's always this divinity in everything. So I'm liking to think now that I've created the spaciousness and received the lessons, that it's going to be the complete book now that I'm ready.
Well, best of luck with it. If there's anything that I or anyone at MLC can do to help you, support you with the launch or the promotion, or how we can get involved in any way, then please do let us know, because we're always we're always so excited when anyone publishes a book, because I know it's a mammoth project and everyone will have worked so hard to put so much into a book. I can't even imagine how much energy goes into writing a book. So if there's anything we can do to support you with that, we would absolutely love to. So I'm hoping that whenever that's published, we can get a copy and we can be there to support you with that.
I love that. Thank you. And absolutely.
Perfect. If anyone is listening or watching and wants to dive deeper into some of your resources and your content and things, where's the best place for them to find you in the meantime before they wait for the book to be done?
Yes, absolutely. So I am on all social media platforms, and I have my social media manager coming on board as of this week. So hopefully that extends further. So hopefully you'll see me on every platform within the next month, if you don't already. However, I do release a Saturday newsletter, Unparalleled Potential, that goes out to my community every single Saturday morning. I'm not one for short form content. I really struggle with that. So they're lengthy letters that will soon become a YouTube channel. That is the next in the pipeline. So if you want to come, softly into my world, that is a really beautiful way to start. On my website, you'll find a ton of free resources that, I no longer practice as a naturopath. So a lot of those resources that I gave to my paid clients are now free resources on my website relating to gut health, hormones, that kind of thing. So that there is available. And you'll also see, I think I should just say JemaineFinlay.com is going to be the best spot, because you'll also find on there, I've got a wellness quiz. It's quite a comprehensive assessment, but it does have a look at areas of wellness, income, your love for yourself, your love in relationships, your lifestyle and your direction. And then it kind of gives you a unique report based on your own results and some resources free that you can access to start shifting those areas of your life. So yeah, JemaineFinlay.com would probably be the best spot to start, because there's a ton of free resources that you can just get a feel for if I'm the person that you want in your corner cheerleading you on, and if not, that's fine. I'll still cheerlead you on no matter what.
Perfect. We will make sure we put all the details of your website and all of those bits that you've mentioned in the podcast notes that will go out. Wonderful. What else have you got going on at the moment? What are you up to today, the rest of the week? What is on the horizon with you at the moment?
Well, I've just flown back from the Pilbara this morning. So another thing that I do on the side is I do wellbeing programs in mining for a company in mining, and I manage different teams throughout Australia that are on our mine sites delivering the wellness program. So I've just spent the last 4 days up there supporting the team on site, and I am taking tomorrow off and enjoying an extra long weekend to work on this passion project ecosystem of mine and just continue to build resources into it. So that's kind of what's going on right in my world. But as I mentioned, I am pretty excited to get a YouTube channel launched very soon. So it'll be a lot of content creation for me this week, I think.
Perfect. And you mentioned about renovating your house as well.
Yes. It's definitely keeping me busy. My partner is often traveling for his work as well, and I keep telling him, don't start a project if you're planning on going away. And he has just ripped up the bathroom and turned the shower offline, and then got called to go away for 3 weeks, and has just left me with a shell of a bathroom and no water running through it. So yeah, there's a lot of chaos in the house at the moment, but we've got a beautiful backyard. So whenever it gets overwhelming, I just go sit out in the garden and just find that grounding and remind myself that it's coming slowly, and it's an adventure.
Yes, I mean, we are doing a bit of light decorating at the moment, and that's already very stressful. But I hear from lots of different friends that have had big projects done. They just said it's testing for the marriage or the partnership. It's testing. But really make sure that you get what you want if you're going to go through like a big house renovation, because it's touch and go at certain points.
Yes, it's fun. I'm very grateful. We try to see the fun and the positive light to it all. So you've got to see the fun in it all, don't you?
And it'll all be worth it in the end when you get a beautiful new bathroom and you're having a lovely shower and it's just peaceful, and you're having your, you can just have your moment in the shower. It'll be all worth it.
Yes. Yeah.
Best of luck with that and your long weekend, and everything that you've got coming up with the book and your YouTube and everything. And if there's anything we can do to help you or support you, then just reach out, because we're happy to do that within our coaches community. And thank you so much for sharing your story on the podcast and sharing your time with me today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to circle back around and listen to this conversation. So thanks for everything and for your beautiful offerings, Lorna. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.